Welcome back to another episode. Today is a very hot topic. A lot of people are going through this. I hope this really helps you. I worked with a client on this, and I've been working with many of you. We message on Instagram, on Facebook, in the private group. We work through this in the academy of the guy who says he really likes you, he loves spending time with you, but he can't be in a relationship. He's afraid. So let's go through what we hear from this guy. He'll say things like, he'll tell you these dramatic stories. Maybe he tells you about a breakup that he had. He was married once, he was engaged once, he's never had, or he was engaged once and it really threw him off, or that one marriage that he had made him really question everything. So he's really into you, yet if you really look at it, you're kind of being held prisoner of his past relationship. And as you sit there in your cell, you're supposed to be convincing him to let you out of this cell of his past experience and prove to him that once you're out, you'll really be able to show him that you're completely different. And so the way they set it up is to put you in a position where you're selling yourself to him all the time. I mean, I'm so sorry that you went through that. I'm not like that. I would never do that to you. I feel like what we have is different. And all of these things are things that he loves to hear. And we don't realize that the gumball is the sales pitch. The gumball is the sales pitch. Every time you're defending who you are and what you have to offer, you're giving him another gumball. Charlie agrees with me. Sorry, I have a puppy if you don't know, so there could be some barking randomly on a podcast. So when I want you to always take note when you're kind of getting on the defensive. Wait a minute, what am I doing? Why am I selling myself? Why doesn't he see me for who I am? And why does some other girl in the past get to dictate how I'm operating right now? Now, what I tell a lot of my clients is sometimes they don't even know they're doing this. They get into a pattern of playing the woe is me, I had a bad relationship, and I have trust issues. Okay, welcome to the majority. You know what I mean? But these guys can really be good. And if they're good looking and you have the chemistry and you're attracted to them, all of a sudden you're caught up in the story. And I'm here to remind you that the story is not original, okay? This is not an original story. Oh man, oh really? Have you had a bad relationship? Do you have trust issues? You are so unique. I can't even believe this happened to you. You mean to tell me that you were in a relationship and then somebody was dishonest? Oh my gosh, that totally never happens to anybody. You are, oh gosh, what an anomaly you are. It's hashtag duh. This happens to everybody. So now he's going to be I'm really struggling with this and I just don't know what I'm going to do. But I do want to come hang out at your house and I want you to stroke my hair and I want you to tell me a lot of good things about me. So I'm going to take my pity party and I'm going to really sell you on it. And then I'm going to make you how in the Greek paintings, how they're feeding grapes. It's we have a little gumball cluster and they lay on our couches and we feed them gumballs on a grapevine and we stroke their hair and we try to coddle them. So this is what beta dogs need. I just love taking the alpha. This guy, he thinks he's an alpha dog, but he's really just a baby puppy. Oh, you're so cute. You need to have little gumballs on the couch and your hair stroked because he's still a child. He's still an adolescent. I'm going to try my hardest to get Eric Bana on this podcast because he did an interview about what it was like for him to morph into the character of John Meehan from Dirty John. If you don't know that story, John Meehan was a major sociopath, like gumball guy on steroids. And it was fascinating to listen to what Eric Bana, the actor, had to do to become that kind of person. And one of the things he said was he had to become really immature. He said, I looked at this guy and the way he operated in his text messages, and it was like, I felt like I was a junior high kid. So I want you to start observing this guy and realizing this isn't like, I want you to picture, is this how like a senior VP would act? I mean, can you picture like a major executive laying on some girl's couch, really complaining? Like, I want you to think about really manly men. This is not what an alpha dog does. An alpha dog would go to therapy and figure it out so that he could get over it. People that really are in control of their lives, their emotions, they get help because it empowers them. It doesn't weaken them. The gumball guy tells you that, well, I don't need therapy, but I do need you to feed me gumball grapes on the couch and stroke my hair. I don't need therapy, but I do need you to baby me and tell me that I won't be like the other girl. I'm going to treat you right because you're so amazing. But like, we're really saying it. I've done this. I can speak so well on this topic because I've done this to so many guys thinking there's so much potential. He's so cute. We have so much fun. Like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with you? Snap out of it, buddy. Like, can't you see the amazing life you could have? No, he can't. Why? Because he hates himself. The narcissist does not love himself. I don't care how the definition reads. The gumball guy does not love himself. He's obsessed with himself because he hates himself. And to constantly get over the hate, they have to be sold on themselves. My sister said it best. Tell me how great I am so I can love myself more or love myself at all, because he can't get there. And by you stroking his head and giving him the gumball grapes, that makes him feel good in the moment, but it also shows him that you see him. So by the very act of coddling him, you also allow him to be vulnerable and naked in front of you. And then he remembers that you see him, and then he runs away. He has to go hide now because he feels embarrassed. If you've ever had a guy say to you, I can't believe I did that in front of you. I'm so embarrassed. And you're like, why? Because to you, it's connection, it's vulnerability, it's bonding. You're like, no, I understand where you're coming from. And you know that it doesn't mean he's going to be like that every day. It just means he was processing something and then he'll go on. Like, all of us have moments like that. But he has a hard time reconciling. He'll have moments where he really needs it. He's trying to feel good about himself, but he can't actually get there. Why? Because he's depending on other people to do it for him. I'm going to say that again. He can never like himself because he depends on other people to do it for him. I need you to tell me why I should like me, which makes him dependent, on the drug, the gumball. And I want you to think of all the colors of the gumballs as all the different flavors. I asked my client, what's his flavor? What are you doing for him? And she said, well, he really likes to talk. And I said, okay, so you are an audience for him. So his gumball is that captive audience where he knows he's getting all of the attention. So if your gumball guy is a talker, he loves the audience and he's getting the gumball just by having someone listen to him. But if you're just listening and when you talk, somebody's not listening to you, then you don't have a friendship. And this is what I was trying to help her see, is that when it's okay if you talk to somebody or they're talking to you and you're listening and then it's reciprocal, then it's friendship. That's what friendship is. I'm talking, you're listening, I'm talking, you're listening, you're talking, I'm listening. I feel like I was saying the same thing. And so we all know what that feels like. That feels great because you're sharing. I mean, when you're a true friend, you really genuinely want to know what's going on in that person's life. You're curious. You have that feeling like, since I moved away from Nebraska to New York, I get this FOMO feeling about my friends and family. And so I'll send a text like, hey, what's going on? Or I'll see a Facebook post and like, I want to know more. I'm watching videos because I like being a part of their lives and seeing what's going on. And so, but the gumball person doesn't feel that same thing. They're not having the FOMO. They're always focused on themselves. And sometimes this is where I separate the narcissist from the gumball guy, because the narcissist is a lot of times very mean and manipulative in the way that they approach these things. They really will use people and they don't care. They have no emotion attached. Where sometimes, where I feel like the gumball guy, a lot of guys I've dated, they weren't trying to be manipulative or controlling. They just developed this addiction of feeling better about themselves, and they became dependent on other people to do it. And so that dependency drove them to cheat, drove them to always be needing that attention from other people. And then it made it so that, like, if I went on a business trip, I couldn't trust him to go out to dinner with friends. And if a cute waitress was giving him attention, he always felt so bad about himself that he would be tempted by her. But then he would feel bad. And a lot of times, some guys will even admit it to you, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, like, they make mistakes and then they know it's wrong, but they can't help themselves. It's just like a drug addict. They know it's wrong, but they can't help it. And they do it anyway. So it doesn't make them a narcissist for doing that. It just makes them an addict. And this is the differentiator with gumball love. Now, every narcissist, I believe, is a gumball guy, because that addiction is still there with a narcissist. But I believe a narcissist is a gumball guy, but a gumball guy is not always a narcissist, or a gumball girl for that matter, because I hope you can hear the difference. I don't think attention addiction is always narcissism, because a lot of times these people do have a conscience. They do have the morals, but the addiction overrides their decision-making power. So when you have this guy who is dependent on other people to make himself feel better, getting into an intimate relationship does not help him feel better about himself. Because in an intimate relationship, I really see who you are, and I accept who you are. But if, I'll just use you as an example. If you don't accept who you are, but I accept you, you're going to have a hard time accepting my love, because you don't love yourself. So you can't receive if you don't love yourself first. So when he hates himself, he cannot deal with the fact that you love him. He can't process it. He can't handle it. He can't listen to it, because he doesn't believe it to be true. It's not that he thinks you're a liar, but that love for him, when he hates himself, is too much. So he lives off of the short-term fixes. He is addicted to the high of false connection. It's not really a connection, but there's a high to it. So they get addicted to that, because the high is still there. But what does the false connection mean? No expectations. When I get high off of a false connection, there is no expectation of me. I can just continue on with life. Where when you are asking this guy who keeps showing up in your life, you're like, hey, dude, come on. Why are you rejected? You feel rejected. but he's actually rejecting himself. Now, what they do though is they say, look, I told you I didn't want this relationship. I told you I can't commit. But then they do all this like boyfriend stuff. And so it's confusing because you're like, wait a minute, you're showing up here. You're being loving. Sometimes they're stroking your head and feeding you gumball grapes. Like sometimes it's extremely intoxicating. I mean, let's just take a second and let's talk about how intoxicating it is. I mean, it can be powerful because if the chemistry is there and then that person, like you're sitting there being vulnerable because you like yourself enough to where you're okay. You're like, you may not think, hey, I'm the greatest person ever, but you've done enough work on yourself where you're like, if he loves me and I love him, then, let's do this. Like you have the mindset of, I'm ready. These are all my clients. My clients are the most incredible women. Every time I do a coaching session, I'm so proud that I'm attracting this quality of people. Every academy that we do, it's like all the cameras turn on, everyone joins the group. And I'm just like, wow, these are such incredible women with hearts of gold. And it's exactly who I want to help. I want to help that girl like you that's sitting there ready to give, ready to be in that relationship, ready to be vulnerable. But the problem is you're trying to love somebody who does not love himself. And when he doesn't love himself, he can't deal with that adoration that you're giving him. He likes it temporarily, but if he were to stay and really just be in the relationship, then he'd have to do like everyday life. So eventually, the gumball grape feeding sessions on the couch turn into ordering takeout and really watching Netflix and chilling and talking about your day, ordering groceries, going shopping, going to relatives' parties, work functions, or just like doing nothing or saying, I really have to go to bed early and I need to clean and I've got a report to do I have to do for work. So can I see you tomorrow? Like that's like real life. Like real life is just, we have to work. And the gumball guy doesn't understand this real life stuff. He gets caught up in the relationship and then he just thinks it's going to be endlessly gumball grape session forever. It's almost like they're more caught up in the romance than women are. It's like they're really watching chick flicks at home. They are. But when they're caught up in the romance, it's easy to get us caught up in the romance. And then they say these things like, I think I love you. I don't know. I struggle with this. Like I had a guy say, I think I love you. I don't know. I have this argument with myself. Like, no, I don't. But then yes, I do. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I love you too. And then you're like, it's so liberating to say it out loud. You're so ready. You're like, come on, like how can you throw this away? This is what you're thinking. Like, why would you not want to run with this? They can't. They can't do it. And that's what I need you to hear. As much as we want to make this work, the only way it would work is for that same guy to stop dating and to figure out how to love himself. And this is why I teach you in the Back to You Academy, we have to do the same thing because if we want to attract a high quality man, if we don't love ourselves, it's really obvious to a healthy guy. The things that you're doing right now that you think aren't obvious, let me tell you, the more solid you get, the more that lack of self-love and self-care, it's very obvious. So the guy that you want, your dream guy, needs you to love yourself completely because he needs you to show up secure, and you'll develop the mindset and the confidence that he needs you to have so that you're sustainable in that relationship. We're not sustainable if we don't love ourselves. It's kind of crazy, but the one thing your future husband needs you to do the most is to love yourself before you meet him. That's it. I mean, that's why the Back to You Academy exists, and I'm running them every single month. God help me, but I want this to be consistently available to you, so you're like, okay, screw it. This month I'm doing it because, and we're starting again May. It's Cinco de Mayo. I'm pulling up my calendar right now. I think it's May 5th. I should know this off the top of my head. That's really bad yes, it's May 5th. I just want to make sure before I said the date on a podcast. So May 5th, 2019, you can sign up and start a class with us, and you'll get all the tools. That's why I created this, because if you don't know how to do that and you don't go through that journey, I hate to say this, but it's like when we're dating gumball guys, we're sort of two sides of the same coin a little bit, because he wants attention and we're giving attention. And we're only really getting gumballs in return. We're not getting friendship. So you're only getting gumballs with a gumball guy. You're not getting anything sustainable. So you're starting to get into a habit of also living off of the high of false connection. Real connection is two people being vulnerable consistently. There's no hiding. No hiding ever. Real couples never hide from each other. Not even one day. Ask them. You guys ever hide from each other? And they're like, what? I mean, I do this to myself just to because sometimes I get into this gumball guy world and then I'm like, this has got to happen with couples. And then I ask them, I'm like, wow, just doesn't freaking happen to them. They don't do it. They don't. Have you ever had a guy kind of disappear on you? Like when I ask my friends that are married, they're like, some of them follow more of my content than others, and they're busy doing their own lives. So it's funny to ask them because they don't really know what I've been talking about recently. And I'm like, yeah, have you ever how they kind of pull away? And I remember I asked my cousin Megan this. It's like, does your husband ever pull away? And she's like, it had been 15 years at that point, and she actually, God love her, I was totally kind of kidding inside, and she just, she thought about it. I don't think so. She's like, wow, never in 15 years. No, I don't remember him pulling away. Did he ever become emotionally distant, or where you just didn't really know where you stood in the relationship? And she was like, I'm like, oh God, I'm just quitting. Just stop trying to think about it. It's like, we get it. It's never happened. But it's why? Because our husband is stable. He's not thinking about, I don't know, maybe I'm feeling insecure. Boom, because he's okay with himself. He's not walking around being like, yeah, I'm super insecure in myself and I'm feeling really, no, he just showed up that way because that's who he is. And so if that's not who we are, it wasn't who I was, I would look at people like that and be like, how do they do it? I don't get it. I didn't get it. How do you just be who you are and just walk around comfortable with it? That was really hard for me to understand because I had dated guys that would pick at everything and have a very judgmental family as well. And I would do it to myself probably more because I would hear it in my head. And every decision I made, I was just so critical. People still say, Melissa, you're so critical of yourself. And it's what's held me back the most in just even creating content or being consistent because I'm just always criticizing myself. I'm getting much better at it. But that criticism from others, from the guys in our relationships, it's the roadblocks, or they are the roadblocks for us truly becoming who we are. So inside the academy or in the private Facebook group, I've said what are your favorite flowers? It's a simple question. And maybe you already know, my favorite flowers are daisies or they're Gerbers or whatever. But for me, I was like, I don't know. I would look at flowers and think, well, they're all so pretty. I don't know which one. And then it's like, yeah, you really do like one or two. Like, which ones are they? Like, and just to get me to like, okay, what do I really like? Those kinds of things. It's like, wow, why is that hard for you? Because you're always waiting for someone to say, oh, those stupid. I hate those flowers. Those stink. How can you like those? And then you're like, oh, I don't know. Then you just pick another one because you're like, maybe they're right. Instead, the secure person goes, man, I don't care. I love it. Like, I love the smell of rose. And my sister and I were just talking about, she's like, I don't know, rose just kind of smells like old lady. And I kind of see what she's saying, but I still like it. And I used to resist it because I kind of, I get it. It is a little old lady-ish smelling, but then it's so fresh, like the right rose smell to me. And then I mix it with, I always wear Michael Kors the classic fragrance line. And that mixture of that rose with that scent, I love it. I like the smell. And I'm sticking with it now. I don't even think about it now. It's like, this is what I love. And I look for every rose, scented bath salts and lotions and candles and everything. I just love everything that smells rose. So, but it's stuff like that to be so clear on. We have to take the time and the journey to do that work so that when you show up, and not even just on dates, like, yeah, of course, the guy that's secure in himself, he's not going to think like, wow, she's really secure in herself and she really knows what kind of flowers she likes. He's not going to think about it that way. It's just going to be, you're going to be easy to be around because indecisive people, insecure people are hard to be around. And when we're insecure, we don't realize that we are. And so sometimes people are choosing not to hang out with us because, have you ever tried to go to dinner with somebody? Hey, what would you like? Oh, I don't care anything. Okay, well, like, what do you lean toward? And then they just won't make a decision. It's annoying. It's annoying. Now, they may do that in that area, but then they know exactly what they want. Other areas, everybody has their thing. But if you don't really know who you are in every aspect, you're not interesting. And it's hard to connect with you because you don't know who you are. How do I know who you are if you don't know who you are? And that's the way I used to be. Like, I guarantee you, if I could, God help, I just like, thank God I can't see the video of me on dates, 15 years ago, but I don't even know what I was saying. It's not that I had no identity. You have an identity. Of course, we have opinions about things. And, it wasn't like I was wandering around just giant vanilla person. But I think the real underlying feeling is the fear of just saying the things that you want to say and being okay if that person rejects you. The more secure you get, the more you will feel like, well, if they reject me for that, then good, because I can't be with somebody who wouldn't accept that. You know what I mean? Like, if you have certain beliefs and you're passionate about them, you can't marry somebody who doesn't share in those beliefs. It's just not going to work, right? But can't you think back to a time when you would sit there and say, well, maybe I can be with somebody who thinks differently than me, opposites attract. And then you what's the word? When you settle, that's the word I'm looking for. When you settle for what you really don't want. Because why? Because we're afraid that what we really want isn't out there. Like, I've got to settle for this because if I don't, then I'm not gonna ever find anyone. And that's exactly the opposite of what people that have healthy relationships think and do. Brené Brown says this best. She said, people that feel worthy of love and belonging have love and belonging. As soon as you feel worthy for love, it will come into your life. But when you don't feel worthy for love, you're going to find other people who also do not feel worthy of love. And your big heart is still there, and you are so ready to give. And the difference between you and the gumball guy is that you're a giver. But if you don't feel worthy, you're never going to actually understand the value of what you're giving. When you know your worth, you also know the value of your love. Does that make sense? It's like when you get to a point where you're like, wow, my life is together and I'm a trustworthy person. I have good intentions. I'm honest. I am caring. I'm a good friend. I have if I use myself as an example, if a guy meets me, he's going to meet not only family and friends and a network of incredible people, friends all over the country. I mean, I bring a lot to the table. I've worked really hard to build a life that I have so much. So somebody comes in, they would benefit from all those relationships, not only the business that I've built. Do you know what I mean? Like, think about it. Think about like your home, how warm and cozy it is, and the things that you do. Maybe you craft. Maybe you're a singer. Maybe you play the piano. Maybe you're amazing with children. Like, all the things that we have to offer are so incredibly valuable. And when a person comes in and sees, whoa, I really have something here, you're going to be like, yeah, you do. You know it. And not that we get haughty and all braggadocio about it, but we need to be, I've noticed this in the show Friends. It's kind of funny. Like, they all had a confidence about them. They all were like, like Phoebe would say, well, these grade A loins, I don't know if I'm ready to take these grade A loins off the market. Like, she saw herself as grade A loins. And it was like, I remember Ross going, wow, I just admire your confidence, because they all kind of felt like they all had their vulnerabilities, but they also did have this air of confidence about them that they knew what they have to offer. Maybe with the exception of Chandler a little bit. But even Chandler had the confidence. Like, he knew, and he would be vulnerable. And I know these are fictitious characters, but it's all, people that we can kind of picture and imagine. But when you watch the show, if you watch the reruns, I watch it like every day before I go to bed, because it's my go-to mindless humor. And I can literally close my eyes and picture everything and fall asleep in like 10 minutes. But I really believe that that's where we need to be. We need to be confident. We need to be able to have fun. And if you're a coaching client with me, a lot of my girls, they go through the academy and then they're on dates. And they're like, Melissa, oh my God, I have a date. What do I do? And I always say, have fun. It should be just fun. This is not complicated. There are no dating games. There's no rules. It always should be fun. When you're on a date with the right person, you should be thinking about nothing else but how much fun you're having, and the time is passing fast. You're laughing and you're enjoying life. Your dates should probably, I don't want to say should, but they're probably not going to be really heavy conversation, because when you're both really secure in who you are, you're probably just really enjoying each other's company. And then maybe you do have really in-depth, like deep talks, but I'd be willing to bet it's feathered in with a lot of fun, flirtation, and laughter if you are two people that have worked really hard on yourselves to get to that point where you've made yourself happy. So when I said to you earlier that the gumball guy relies on other people to make him feel better about himself, he needs those resources. But the person who chooses to make themselves happy is the one that can sustain a real relationship. They're the ones that come move-in ready, because they don't require anybody else to make them feel a certain way about themselves. Some people say, Melissa, are you still single? Like, what's going on with you? And I tell people, look, this happens in the right timing. So we can't force it. And we should be able to have fun in our lives when we're single. So I really want to challenge you. If you're like, oh my gosh, Melissa, how can I don't know if I can get there. I'm looking at everybody else that's married. I'm feeling like I don't know, why am I still single? That's the wrong mindset. I just said to a client, there are soldiers that are coming home and they're in caskets or they're missing limbs. There are people that are diagnosed with cancer. There are people going through chemotherapy. There are people that have got diagnosed with tumors. Like, if you're healthy or relatively healthy and you have a job and you can get like a Starbucks coffee and you can think of a business idea, I mean, think about how incredibly fortunate we are. There's so many things to experience. And yes, a relationship is one of them, but I really believe that we cannot make this our sole focus. So it's sort of occupational hazard for me because this is what I talk about. But really, if you hear my message, it's about recognizing when someone else doesn't see you. And it's about realizing when you are pulling out gumballs and you're realizing, oh, I'm just an audience member. I'm not really a participant in this conversation. I'm sitting there in the audience, and my wonderful ability to give and to listen is what's being used. But it's not being appreciated. And sometimes I've heard my clients say like, yeah, sometimes he'll say nice things, and it doesn't mean that they're always doing that, because sometimes they can do nice things. My client and I talked about how I've had gumball guys come in to help me change a tire or, help me move or something. And you're like, wow, they can do really nice things, but it's usually to make themselves feel better. I mean, haven't you ever I'm totally Monica Geller from Friends. I could help you move and organize. I love organization. But the difference is when you're doing it for a friend, you get that satisfaction of seeing them enjoy your gift. You know what I mean? I did this when I went back and saw my mom. I helped her. She was actually she had to leave and go out of town for a few days, and I was at her house, and I just cleaned out cupboards and organized her kitchen. And I was just so excited for her to enjoy the organization. And so I'd call her and be like, so is it working good for you? And I was just I got so giddy just to think about how that was a load off of her mind. Where a gumball person would be like, so I did the kitchen and yeah, that was how was that for you? You know what I mean? I don't know, I can't even do it right. But you know what I'm saying? It's people that want to congratulate themselves versus finding the joy in helping somebody because it makes you happy. When you buy a gift for someone, I can never buy gifts ahead of time or Christmas because I get too excited to see them open them. I get excited for them to enjoy the gift. And that's what should be happening with you. Someone should be enjoying your gift, your presence, your humor, your laugh, your energy, your disposition, your opinions about things. When you call a friend, you're like, I just want to hear what Mike has to say. I want to hear what Julie has to say about this. I just want to know her take on it, because you like to hear their perspective. That's when you're really connecting and understanding somebody and appreciating who they are. And this is what you want to see consistently. The gumball guy can sometimes show up, Netflix and chill with you, and sit on your couch and feed you gumball grapes, and it feels like you're being appreciated, but then the next day you don't hear from him, or for the next week. And he's really busy at work, and he really enjoyed that time, but he's just really confused right now, and then you see him dating somebody else 2 weeks later. And you're like, what is going on? What's going on is that he takes the path of least resistance. And this is the last point. I posted this on Instagram. I reminded my client of this today, that the gumball guy will always end up with a woman that expects the least from him. The gumball guy will always end up with a woman who expects the least from him. He'll usually be with a woman he can cheat on easily. He'll post the pictures on Instagram, Facebook, make it look neat, but then he's still calling you. claiming that he's in love with her. If he's in love with her, he wouldn't be calling you. And if he was in love with you, he wouldn't be with her. So he's not in love with either one. And that's the tough part. That's the hard pill to swallow with a gumball guy, is that they're really not going deep with anyone because they don't love themselves. Therefore, they don't have the ability to really love other people the way that they deserve to be loved, because they cannot do it for themselves. They are miserable people. Now, they won't admit this to you. Sometimes you'll see glimmers of it. Some gumball guys will let you see inside for like a second. But when they do that, it's really hard for them to be around you again, because they know that you know the real person. Trust me, I've tested this. Because it should work the opposite way. And I want you to never let the gumball guy's reluctancy to connect with you to create fear in connecting with somebody else. Because you might connect with another guy who is fantastic, who's available, who is an actual good guy, and he might have a moment where he's really vulnerable and he might feel embarrassed about it, but he's not going to go anywhere. You know, he might be like, I'm sorry, I got emotional about that. And you're like, no, that's okay. And he knows that that's not who he is every day. And you know that that's not how he is every day. So it will become a bonding experience, even though he may have felt uncomfortable, or like we've all had that moment where like, gosh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I cried so much about that. Or I'm sorry I had to, like, you know, you feel kind of like you've burdened somebody because you got a little bit overly emotional. And then they're like, no, that's totally fine. And you're able to continue on. It's so tragic that the gumball guy can't see that, and he can't really, he can't understand that he is accepted for his flaws and his attributes. That's what trust me, I tried so hard with so many guys to really get that point across, that even though I saw what he perceived as weaknesses, it never changed how I felt. And because I do this, I have had conversations with my gumball guys years later and been able to kind of get a download from them of what happened when we were dating, and ask them questions. I've had these incredible opportunities to sit across from them, and it was totally the truth. They felt insecure. One of them said, you know, Melissa, he said, I did need attention. I didn't feel like I made enough money. I needed to get myself off the ground. I just didn't feel like I was enough. And he was plenty for me. It was like he was my dream boat, but he couldn't get past those feelings. So he was the guy that kept coming back, but then always would shrink away. And I would blame myself. So the moral of this whole story is, you are not being rejected. He has already rejected himself. It's the level of self-hate that prevents him from being able to make an authentic connection. And also, I forgot, oh my gosh, I can't believe I almost forgot to say this, that one of my clients said sometimes that the sex was awkward, or the physical interaction was awkward. And when there's awkwardness, it's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's that, well, it could be you. One person isn't being authentic. So usually in this case, if it's the gumball guy, he's not really being himself. So you cannot have intimacy without authenticity. You can have the high of false connection. You can have gumball love, the sugar high, but you will not have true connection and intimacy. There will be awkwardness without authenticity. If I can't show up, I can't be vulnerable, I can't just be myself, then I'm going to be awkward because I'm being something different. We see this all the time when we watch politicians speak. When it's not really coming from their heart, we know it. We can feel it. And we know they don't really mean it. We can watch them read from a teleprompter and we know this isn't really how they feel because it kind of comes across mechanical, right? It just doesn't feel real. So I want to clear up this whole mystery of why can't I connect with this guy? Why doesn't it feel real? It's because you don't have friendship. You don't have the authenticity there, and you're not connecting, you're not having true intimacy because he's not really showing up. And when he's not really showing up, that's what's preventing you from moving forward. And then he goes and hides because he doesn't know what else to do. Because the alternative is to face himself. It's not really facing you. It's facing himself because the way you are, this is what I told my client today, the way you are with him, the way you look at him, he sees himself. And it drives him nuts to see you love him when he hates who he is. He can't deal with that loving, adoring look because he knows that you see the depth, and he can't deal with that big fat mirror that's in front of him when you're looking into his eyes. And it's counterintuitive, right? It should work the other way, and it does work the other way when somebody is ready and they're willing and they're available and they've done the work on themselves, or they had a strong, healthy upbringing. Some people don't have to do this work on themselves. They don't have to. I remember going up to Dr. Michaela Sarno at the Smart Success Conference, and she's a licensed psychotherapist, and she does EMDR therapy. And I said, how do you construct self-worth? And it wasn't a weird question to her at all, but I knew what I was asking was kind of big, but I also knew that we have to know how to do it. And I got so annoyed with people saying, you've got to love yourself. And so the whole Back to You Academy is about learning how to love yourself. But I'll tell you what she told me. She said, draw a circle around yourself right here in this room. Pretend like we just drew a chalk circle. And she said, tell me what's valuable about you without pointing to anything outside the circle. And even back in 2014, I stood there and I was like, I didn't even know how to answer the question. And I said, I don't know. And she said, okay, think about somebody you love. And I thought of my little cousin who was 4 years old, I think at the time, Hudson. She said, okay, put Hudson in the circle. What makes him valuable? And I drew the circle around him in my mind. And I thought, wow, everything that makes him valuable is inside the circle because it's who he is, right? It's his humor, it's his personality, it's his warm heart, it's his goofiness, his desire to cheat in board games and think he can still get away with it. Still does it to this day and we catch him. It's like all those funny things about him and it's not like, oh, because he gets good grades in school or that he's good at sports. Like, no, that's not what gives him value. It's who he is at his core. And so constructing your own self-worth is really the path and the journey to seeing those things in you and really understanding the value. And it's not easy if you haven't developed a lifestyle or not developed a lifestyle. Well, I guess you couldn't develop a lifestyle, but if you haven't done the work, and it's too much to go into here, this is what we do in the whole academy, because I was like, this is the most important thing I can do. I can tell you about gumball guys, and we do. We talk a lot about gumball guys in the academy. But that's, if you work with me, this is what we do so that when you show up at a job interview, you show up on a date, you show up at a family function, you're not questioning your value anymore. You know exactly who you are. You know exactly what you what people you want to engage with, what people you choose. I mean, I have taken entire groups of family. I have ginormous families on both sides. And I have just, I don't want to say I've written them off, but it's like there's no value. They don't see my value. I don't really connect with them. And I shouldn't even say they don't see my value, but it's just like, when I'm hanging around with them, nothing's happening. It's like there's no real intimacy. There's no connection. I can't really build anything with them. So when I made the shift to only choose people that I'm building something with and that I can really have a real relationship with, the whole quality of my entire life changed. And so this is the stuff that the gumball guy just can't get. And I don't want to get too off topic here because we're getting short on time. But I just wanted to walk you down this road. So if you're getting the text from the guy who's saying the loving things, he wants to mean them, but he is light years from being able to bring it to fruition. He wants to be the good husband and the good father, but you can't love him enough to the point he can love himself. No matter how much you love him, it's not going to make him love himself. And until he loves himself, he's not going to be able to give you what you need. And then what happens with those people is they start to blame you for their own shortcomings because they don't want to look at themselves. So it's your fault. You did this. I didn't do this. I told you what I wanted. You didn't listen to me. I told you I couldn't be your boyfriend, but you keep pushing this. Then they turn into that guy. It's your fault. I told you I can't be this for you. Yet 2 days later, it's like one of those, I can't be your boyfriend. Also me on your couch getting my hair stroked. It's like, but they won't reconcile those two things. It's like, okay, so when you're here and you're on my couch and you're lovey-dovey schmoopy, that's not you wanting to be a boyfriend. And they'll always have an excuse because every time you ask that question, you bring out a humongous floor-to-ceiling mirror and force them to stare in it. And the reflection blinds them. They cannot stand to look at it. So they run. And then you start changing your behavior so that they don't run. Then you start tiptoeing around. And this is where all of the books are born of don't say this too fast, do this, don't do that, be careful, you're going to scare them away. No, all those books are teaching you how to tiptoe around men that hate themselves. It should be how to date a guy that hates himself. Say this, don't say this, be careful. No. Do you see that? See how quick we can start to think it's a game? And sure, you can play the game. If you really reverse engineer everything I said, you could see how you would play the game. You can see why ignoring him would reel him back in. Because ignoring him makes him think, well, where'd you go? Don't you love me? Where are you? And then he really wants to know where you are. And then you're like, oh, look at that. There he comes back. I ignored him and it worked. Well, sure, it's going to work. Because now you made him more comfortable by ignoring him. By being available and vulnerable makes him extremely scared. But when you come back, or when you ignore him, then he's like, oh, okay, whew, I don't have to, she took the mirror away. When you ignore him, you cover up the mirror. When you come back, the mirror's back. You can't win. Either way, it's like, either way, he's still not going to love himself. Right? I know. I don't bring good news. But here's the thing. I do bring good news, though, because now you can sit there so smug and watch it. Like, my clients will say, Melissa, what should I do? I'm like, I don't know. Because I need you to see it enough to where when you finally cut the cord, even when you miss him, you can go back and be like, yep, but when he comes back, he's awkward and the sex is awkward because he's not being authentic. And so we had that moment we were sitting on the couch and it was just like, okay, and it was really romantic the night before, but we did have wine. And then, we were at that one place and it was kind of like, super romantic. But then the next day it was just, that's a conversation I need you to be able to have. And you're like, yep, even though we did have some fun times, those other times, yeah, there's nothing there to pursue. There's no future. It's a dead end because he won't do the work. Remember, he's dependent. So even when you see him on Instagram with some other chick, she's just the new gumball source. She's doing the gumball grapes on the couch and stroking his hair. And he's going to do the same thing with her. Even if they marry that chick, they're still avoiding. They're still unavailable. It always ends. It's never good. This guy does not become Mr. Freaking Available. Trust me. When you talk to that girl, because you probably, we always end up talking to that girl at some point down the road. And then you're like, yep, there it was. He was the same way with her. Pulled the same crap. Haven't you talked to the other girl at some point in a relationship and you're like, yep, same thing. He's not going to be different with her. But it might look different because you're only looking at highlight reel Instagram stuff. And I know you're like, oh yeah, highlight reel, whatever, but they look so happy. They're not. It's fake because he can't just miraculously manifest all this stuff. This takes work. It takes therapy. It takes all the stuff that you're willing to do, but he's not. So it doesn't happen overnight. Okay, I hope this helped you. And I know it's a lot to take in, but if you're in this situation, I hope this was music to your ears. And I love to help specific clients. So I had a wonderful, amazing client today. You know who you are. And it just got me thinking about this all day long because the one thing that just kills me is to see a beautiful soul like hers feel rejected and feel sad and feel unwanted and undesired. You ain't undesired. You are so wanted. That's why they keep coming back. That's why my sister and I always joke, cue the song, Unforgettable. I can't even tell you how many times we've sent that song to each other because a guy will come back and it's like, wow, it's been 3 years and there he is. It's like they always come back. Even when you have these dramatic breakups, it's like freaking clockwork. They're so predictable. They're coming back because they love your energy. He loves your energy. He loves your look. He thinks you're hot. You got it going on. That's why he wants you. But he just, because of all the things we've already discussed, he can't go through with it. So you're hot. You're beautiful. You're fun to hang out with. He loves being around you. He loves your energy. He loves the way you smell. You have a cute butt. He loves your eyes. He loves your hair. If you don't, guys are kind of super, we will date the guy that we're not that attracted to, but guys typically don't. They don't go where they're not attracted. So stop thinking you're fat or ugly. You didn't alter your appearance overnight. Okay. So you're still beautiful. That ain't it. That's not what's going on here. And you really have to let go of that so that you understand the reality of the picture. And then if you have to take these words or you listen to this podcast a few times, take some notes and then really watch that behavior, go back in your mind and replay it, you'll see these patterns and it will become clearer and clearer to you. And then this beautiful thing will happen. You'll go on a first date with some guy and you'll see it in the first date and you'll be like, oh my God, he's totally insecure. He hates himself. And you'll just know it. You'll be like, totally hates himself. And nice to meet you. And bye-bye now. You'll be like, my sister and I always go, I see you. I've dated you. I've had psycho fights with you, and I've already met your family, and I was bored out of my mind, and now I've broken up with you. Like, go through it all in our mind like it's already happened. It's like, you'll be able to see how the whole relationship would play out with that guy, and then you'll just end it over coffee, over one dinner, and you'll be like, poof, out. And this is why I do what I do, because I can't tell you. I'll only know when I die and go to heaven. I'll be like, God, I want to know how many relationships ended that were toxic, and how much time was saved by women that normally would have hung in but left, and what happened in all their lives. Like, this is what I geek out about. What are you going to do because you didn't stay with him? You're going to do some, you guys, we have the cool stuff happening in the academy. Like, somebody booked zip lining today. Somebody booked a bodybuilding competition. And I'm telling you, they came in crying, came in totally like obsessing over a guy, feeling completely down. And 1 or 2 months in the academy, they became members. They still are pursuing this whole process. I told them, like, look at you guys. Look how different you are. It's amazing. It's just so cool to watch the transformation. And you know what? It doesn't have to be for a long time. Some of these girls, like 30 days, and they're like, they have perspective, things shift. And our last academy member, I love her so much. She lives in the UK, and she's like, I haven't heard, she's in bliss, fell in love again. And she's on, I don't even know, date like 8 or 9. And she's like, he's met the family, and, but she came in really having a difficult time getting over her ex, and got over him and met somebody new. Some people are really just getting into their lives and pursuing their passions, and they're happy. And that's what I want for you. True happiness with your own life. So when you meet somebody, you're just going to enjoy dating, and you're just going to have fun on dates. You're not going to worry about yourself and what you look like, or if you have, you're going to just know, yes, I'm awesome. I have everything to offer. And if he's hanging out with me and we're attracted to each other, you're not going to feel insecure. You're just going to enjoy it. And that's what I want for you, because when you're with the right guy, it's going to be so weird if we work together, but I'm just going to be like, yeah, if you're with the right guy, I really don't have anything to tell you, because he's just going to be normal, and it's going to be boring to talk to me, because good dudes are just good dudes, and there's no advice. I stay out of that. It's like, you know what? That's all you, because that's between you and him. When you have a good guy, you don't need a third party. It's all on you guys. It's your special bond. And I set you free to go in your lovely bliss. And that's the ultimate goal for this. So I love you so much. I can't wait to hear your success stories. I want your heart to heal. I want you to, I always cry when I do this, but it's just like, man, that's what I want. I want you to have that feeling of worthiness. Just like Brene Brown, when you feel worthy of love and belonging, you have love and belonging. And that knowing that you're worth it, it's such a secure, satisfying, solid feeling that, and you're going to realize when you get to this point, you're going to bring a strength to the relationship that really ultimately is the one that lasts forever. That's going to be the stuff that gets you and him through the hard times. You're not going to lean on him for things that you would have normally leaned on the guys in the past. And that's what's going to make you a strong couple. So it's all about evolving into who you are really meant to be. And that's where the Back to You Academy, I'm really creating the environment that allows you to grow. And I'm so proud of this content I've created, because I'm so careful not to tell you what to do or how to do it, but that it always comes from you, and it's always organic. and that it feels totally authentic, and that you're not saying, oh, Melissa said I should do this or that. I'm more guiding you to what is already inside, and I'm trying to tap into that to pull it forward, if that makes sense. So it's like I just recreated this intro and outro of cultivating those seeds of greatness to bring them to full bloom. That's what we're trying to do. Right now you have blooms that people can see, but there's more that's hidden under the layers of doubt, under those layers of criticism. And once those are removed, the real you is there. She pops. And then you attract the people that really see you for who you actually are. And you get this acceptance of you on a level that you never imagined. And that is your happiest life. All right. I will see you soon. I hope you join the next Academy. If you have questions, go to gumballlove.com. All the information is there on the Academy. If you have a specific question, message me on Instagram. I'm at the Melissa Ledger, TheMelissaLegger. And you can direct message me there. You can message me on Facebook as well. Or you can email me, melissa@gumballlove.com. All right, I'll talk to you soon. I hope this helped you. Would love to hear from you. And if you think this would help somebody, please feel free to share it with a friend. You don't have to share it on I know it's kind of awkward to share some of these things on social media, but don't be afraid to send a link to a friend that may be struggling in this area and just ask her for her opinion, because you just never know where people are and who needs this message. So thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.